A wave of genuine corporate panic is right now tearing through the executive boardrooms of the WNBA. The carefully choreographed, diplomatically worded off-season discussions about theoretical salary cap adjustments are finished, completely done. The league office just delivered a thunderous, table-shaking mandate that has set in motion the most mathematically complex and financially consequential countdown in the entire history of professional women's sports. Welcome back to WNBA Pro, where manufactured sports network propaganda and emotionally charged fan speculation have absolutely no place. What we traffic in here is the cold, unforgiving reality of corporate leverage, multi-million-dollar salary cap arithmetic, and ruthless boardroom decision-making. Lock the doors, silence your notifications, and bring your full, undivided analytical attention to what I am about to break down, because the WNBA just released logistical documents that are going to permanently and violently reshape the entire Eastern Conference. For months, this league has been sleepwalking through a state of collective suspended animation. Every front office was consumed by the marathon collective bargaining agreement negotiations. The Indiana Fever brass sat back with quiet confidence, convinced they had more than enough time to carefully map out their off-season strategy and methodically work through negotiations with their most valuable impending free agents. The WNBA Executive Board just obliterated that assumption entirely. They dropped a massive, precisely synchronized logistical bomb directly onto the league calendar, and nothing will ever look the same again.
As you guys can see here, WNBA Communications. The WNBA Expansion Draft 2026 presented by State Street Investment will be taking place on April the 3rd on ESPN. Oh, let's go. So, the WNBA 14th to 15th franchise.
Absorb the absolute finality of that official league announcement. Let that specific date lock itself into your analytical framework right now. April 3rd is not simply another marker on the professional basketball calendar. It is the hard corporate deadline for the single most destructive and financially volatile event in the modern era of this sport. The long-anticipated, heavily funded expansion draft is now officially locked in. The Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo are actively powering up their multi-million-dollar war rooms as we speak. And make no mistake, these are not your traditional, financially constrained WNBA franchises operating on cautious budgets. These are heavily capitalized, aggressively positioned corporate investment syndicates. They bring billionaire ownership groups, completely unburdened salary caps, and an absolute mandate to execute a hostile acquisition of elite talent immediately. They are circling the existing 13 franchises like highly sophisticated predators, hunting specifically for championship-caliber assets exposed by mathematically vulnerable rosters. And right now, no roster in the entire ecosystem carries more mathematical vulnerability than the Indiana Fever. Let us break down the brutal arithmetic of an expansion draft with complete clinical precision. The rules of this process do not allow you to shield your entire roster infrastructure. League regulations explicitly force every existing general manager to make painful, large-scale sacrifices. You are legally required to expose highly productive, enormously valuable players to the open market, essentially placing your own personnel on a silver platter for the expansion franchises to select from. This dynamic creates a deeply corrosive psychological environment inside locker rooms league-wide, and the Indiana Fever front office finds itself trapped in an executive nightmare of the highest order. They operate the most watched, most commercially lucrative offensive ecosystem in the sport today. But they are working within a strictly limited number of coveted protection slots. Caitlin Clark, the billion-dollar chief executive officer of this entire enterprise, must be protected without question. Aaliyah Boston, the high-value interior anchor, must be shielded as well. But once those foundational pillars are secured, the boardroom mathematics turn genuinely brutal.
In the detail, it says, in preparation for the expansion draft, each of the existing 13 teams will be required to submit the league office by Sunday, March 29th. The roster list that includes every player to whom the team has rights. Players on the...
Take a hard, critical look at the executive panic that single deadline generates. March 29th is the absolute non-negotiable drop-dead date for the submission of protected lists. Indiana's general manager has precisely 96 hours to make sweeping, permanent corporate decisions that will define the franchise's entire championship window. Every player currently under contract must be coldly evaluated and assigned a strict mathematical value. If management aggressively shields a high-volume isolation scorer like Kelsey Mitchell, they are simultaneously and intentionally leaving elite defensive perimeter contributors like Lexi Hull or Sophie Cunningham fully exposed. If they prioritize the perimeter spacing essential to maximizing Caitlin Clark's offensive efficiency, they actively surrender their secondary scoring engine in return for nothing. This is a textbook corporate hostage scenario, and there is no clean exit anywhere in sight. The expansion franchises are not here to collect aging, low-efficiency bench players. They are deploying sophisticated advanced analytics to pinpoint undervalued, high-efficiency assets that other front offices have overlooked. They will go directly after the glue players, the exact rotational contributors the Indiana Fever absolutely depend on to fuel their high-speed transition offense. A single miscalculation from Indiana's management team, a single act of misplaced loyalty toward an aging veteran over a high-motor rim runner, and Portland and Toronto will strip away Indiana's championship depth overnight. And the front office must execute this entire restructuring while navigating a relentless flood of mainstream media noise that obscures the real stakes. The major sports networks are avoiding the actual mathematics of this expansion draft entirely. They are flooding the coverage landscape with polished, sanitized corporate narratives designed to distract the audience. But while the mainstream media runs interference, the true power brokers are moving in disciplined, calculated silence. Now let us shift our analytical lens to the absolute epicenter of the global sports economy. Because while the league debates minimum contracts and roster slots, the multinational corporate machinery is preparing to detonate a financial nuclear device across the global footwear market. Nike, the undisputed monopolistic force in sports marketing, is executing a highly classified corporate operation. The company has maintained total, unprecedented silence regarding Caitlin Clark's signature shoe. In today's hyper-connected, always-on attention economy, that level of complete information blackout is mathematically impossible unless it is being actively and forcefully enforced by the most powerful executives on the planet.
What are the main... Wait, can I get you to say something without spilling the beans?
all I know is when they come out, they are going to be incredible. Incredible. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. Everybody who's been anxiously waiting, anticipate.
Listen closely to the unmistakable corporate anxiety radiating from Ryan Ruocco in that specific exchange. Apply the cold precision of a Wall Street auditor to his visible hesitation. He is a highly connected, enormously influential national television broadcaster for ESPN. He has direct access to classified inside intelligence regarding what could be the single largest product launch in Nike's corporate history. Yet he is visibly, completely unwilling to reveal a single detail on a public broadcast. He stumbles over his words, carefully navigates every syllable, and refuses to break the corporate embargo by even a fraction. Why would a prominent national broadcaster be reluctant to simply describe the design of a basketball shoe? Because he fully understands that he is not talking about footwear. He is talking about a multi-million-dollar, globally weaponized marketing instrument. Nike is preparing to release a massive, precisely coordinated global stimulus package into the marketplace. By deliberately withholding information, they are engineering scarcity, artificially inflating consumer demand to astronomical levels before the launch. Caitlin Clark is actively building a vast, unstoppable shadow economy that allows her to completely bypass the outdated, heavily restricted salary architecture of the WNBA. She is a global conglomerate operating inside the body of a point guard. And the deeply insecure, long-entrenched veteran establishment is utterly paralyzed by that reality. They cannot compete with her on the open market. So instead, they scramble to claim credit for the financial revolution she created entirely on her own. Which brings us directly to the most audacious and delusional victory lap in recent sports business history. Because while Caitlin Clark single-handedly lifts this entire league out of financial irrelevance, the legacy veterans are running a coordinated public relations campaign to rewrite the historical record.
Landmark deal come together.
I mean, it's really incredible. And when you think about the years, I think we've talked about this a lot. This fighting's been going on for so long. I mean, we talk about 30 years of the WNBA being the best, women's basketball league in the world. And this whole time we've just been fighting to be paid like it and to be treated like it. And for a lot of the players that played before me, our generation.
Listen to the sheer, unfiltered arrogance embedded in Diana Taurasi's comments in that soundbite. Step back and fully process the staggering delusion packed into that carefully manufactured statement. She is sitting before a national television audience and boldly claiming personal credit for the new collective bargaining agreement. She is asserting that the legacy veterans fought for decades and finally delivered this landmark financial breakthrough on behalf of the entire league. It is a mathematically bankrupt corporate hallucination. Billionaires do not voluntarily surrender massive, unprecedented generational wealth because athletes competed in near-empty gyms for 2 decades. The historically verified truth is that the legacy veterans operated within an archaic, heavily subsidized business model that required constant financial life support. They produced negligible television ratings and deeply depressed corporate sponsorship numbers for years. What they ultimately did was survive long enough to attach themselves to the economic tidal wave created exclusively by Caitlin Clark. She is the undisputed force who compelled the television networks to tear up their existing contracts. She sold out every arena, shattered every broadcast metric, and completely transformed the merchandising revenue model for this league. The surging $7 million salary cap, the new Supermax contracts, the entire financial renaissance, every single dollar of it is subsidized by her unprecedented commercial gravity. Yet the veteran establishment has the breathtaking audacity to sit in front of a camera and claim ownership of results they did not produce. This is the precise definition of a corporate freeloader demanding an executive bonus for the billion-dollar output of the actual CEO. But the free market does not bend to polished podcast narratives and carefully rehearsed talking points. Millions of engaged consumers see through it with perfect clarity. The era of the participation trophy and the heavily subsidized legacy narrative is over, buried for good. The expansion draft is closing in fast. The roster protection deadline is squeezing every front office in the league. The Indiana Fever management team is navigating a multi-million-dollar minefield under maximum pressure. Surrounded by heavily capitalized expansion syndicates, they must make ruthless sacrifices among their most valuable rotational assets. They must mathematically secure their primary billion-dollar pillars. And they must execute this entire restructuring before the greatest product launch in Nike's history detonates across the global market. This is the new WNBA macroeconomic reality, and it is an absolute, unforgiving meat grinder. Thank you for being here on WNBA Pro, where we dissect the undeniable truth of the global sports business with surgical precision. Manufactured front office narratives and cowardly corporate spin are not welcome on this platform. What lives here is the brutal, uncompromising truth rooted entirely in the underlying mathematics. If you want the most analytically rigorous and honest basketball content anywhere on the internet, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now to join the top tier of informed operators. Drop a like on this video to drive this corporate exposure through the algorithm where it belongs. I want your raw, unfiltered analytical take in the comments below. Who will the Indiana Fever be mathematically forced to sacrifice in the upcoming expansion draft? Will management make the catastrophic mistake of leaving an elite perimeter defender completely unprotected? And just how explosive will the global market reaction be when the Caitlin Clark signature shoe officially lands? Give me your most detailed, mathematically grounded predictions. I will see you in the next high-stakes boardroom breakdown. Do not look away, because the corporate civil war is now fully active and the unprepared will be left behind without mercy.